My parents, aside from planning to name me Paul and give me their last name, had always intended to tell me the truth, but they chose not to due to concerns about how it might affect me. I was overwhelmed by their love and support and thanked them deeply. Chelsea felt relieved when I agreed to meet Pierre Dumont. I arranged to meet Dumont to explore our connection at the Excel Hotel. A security guard, after a metal detector check, expressed surprise at my resemblance to Pierre. We proceeded to the presidential suite, where we would meet him. When Pierre and I met for the first time, we were both stunned by how identical we looked, same features, height, and weight. We even shared identical fingerprint patterns and had the same small features, like joined toes on the same two fingers. Chelsea was amazed by the resemblance. I introduced myself to Pierre, who revealed that he too had been adopted and was investigating our shared past. He suggested we meet Moreno, his assistant, who was surprisingly attractive and seemed to notice my interest. I greeted her, and she responded with a polite smile. Pierre then invited us to dine at the XL restaurant. The meal was exquisite, with impeccable service, reflecting Pierre's usual treatment. We discussed our similarities and agreed to wait for the DNA results before drawing conclusions. Elena listened attentively as Pierre and I compared our habits and behaviors. Chelsea was excited about the possibility of a family connection and showed enthusiasm for Pierre's career, which pleased him. 3 days later, the DNA test confirmed that Pierre and I were identical twins, a rare outcome. Chelsea was delighted when I returned home that night, thrilled at the prospect of having a wealthy brother who is a well-known star in Europe and who is now planning to get married. Elena had arranged first-class tickets for our flight back to California on Saturday, with a limousine waiting at the airport. I was more focused on our personal connection than on any celebrity spectacle. I wanted to understand why we had been separated at birth, why our records were sealed, and how Pierre ended up in France while I stayed in the United States. I was concerned about the possibility of media intrusion and how it might impact our family. Chelsea hadn't considered these matters, and I hadn't given them much thought in advance. I reassured her that my focus was on building a meaningful relationship with Pierre and protecting our family from any unwanted attention. We agreed to enjoy the experience while keeping our priorities in order. Chelsea was more excited than I had ever seen her. The limousine took us to Pierre's luxurious hotel, where we shared an emotional embrace as newly confirmed identical twins. Pierre was moved by our recent discovery of each other, and we both agreed that, despite the sealed records, Pierre's contacts could help us investigate our adoptions further. He assured me that he would cover the costs, and I confirmed that my parents had no objections to learning more about our past and that my love for them remained unchanged. Pierre invited us to freshen up before accompanying him for a night out at the club. Elena, looking stunning in a fitted red dress, welcomed us and offered her arm to me while Pierre escorted Chelsea to our table. Chelsea seemed fascinated by Pierre, laughing and dancing with him while I danced a couple of times with someone who primarily interacted with Pierre and showed little interest in me, perhaps due to his apparent charisma. Chelsea greeted Elena politely and thanked her. Pierre kissed Chelsea on both cheeks and briefly on the lips, which Chelsea explained as a French custom. I found it a bit odd that he didn't do the same for me. Chelsea's excitement overflowed that night, leading to an affectionate moment between us, after which we both fell into a deep sleep. The next day, we traveled with Pierre, Elena, and his bodyguard, Gerald, to the press conference. Pierre orchestrated our reunion as long-lost siblings with Chelsea and me, which made me feel uneasy amidst the flood of personal questions. I wasn't prepared. Pierre pushed me to speak into the microphone, but I simply said I wasn't ready to make any statements and stepped back. It seemed Pierre's plan was to use my presence to boost his career. Chelsea appeared frustrated with my response, while Pierre quickly took over and asked Chelsea to share her perspective. Elena whispered and asked if everything was okay. I explained that although I was Paul, not Pierre Dumont, and even though we knew each other, our personalities were very different. The media circus wasn't my scene. Elena seemed surprised and asked why I didn't crave attention. I explained that I had been raised to be confident in who I am and didn't need the glitz and glamour. After the event, Gerald ushered us away from the chaos. I told Pierre that while I had attended the press conference and posed for countless photos, I wasn't ready for the speech, which was his responsibility. Chelsea stepped in to handle the situation, and Pierre reminded us of the time as we rushed to the airport. At the airport, Pierre mentioned that he would stay with us the following week to get to know me better, using the guest room. He assured me that Gerald and Elena would stay close by in Celsia and had other security plans in mind. Before we left, Pierre and Chelsea exchanged more French kisses, and I received a warm hug and kisses from Pierre as well. We both teared up, still in shock from the day's events. Chelsea talked non-stop about not wanting to stop on the way home, while I could barely keep up. I barely spoke on the way home, feeling overwhelmed by the changes at home. I took care of the kids' bath while Chelsea excitedly talked on the phone about the weekend's events. As bedtime approached, she expressed her interest in intimacy, but I declined, citing jet lag and a busy day ahead. Chelsea seemed surprised by my refusal and asked if I was upset that Pierre would be staying with us. Chelsea accused me of being jealous and irrational, but I responded with concerns about her upcoming week alone with him. This led to a heated argument where Chelsea expressed her frustration, and I replied with sarcasm. The next morning, I woke up with no desire to apologize and left quietly for work, assuming Chelsea would handle it. Rachel arrived early and teased me about Pierre's influence on my professionalism. I explained that Pierre was coming to spend the week with me since Chelsea had invited him. I also expressed my concern about Chelsea being alone with him while I was at work. Rachel pointed out that Pierre had been in the news with Chelsea, but not much about me. She revealed that Pierre craved publicity, and while I let Chelsea handle it, she warned me that Pierre had a reputation as a known playboy with a history of infidelity, particularly with married women. I appreciated the warning and acknowledged the possibility that Pierre might pursue Chelsea. I planned to discuss his behavior with her that night to make sure she was aware. Working with occupational therapy clients helped me distract myself from negative thoughts. I had mixed feelings about Pierre but was eager for answers about our background. I arrived home later than usual, surprised to find 3 security company trucks at my house. Pierre was inside, instructing Roland, the foreman, on installing a new security system. Chelsea greeted me and explained that Pierre had arranged for the security system as a gift for allowing him to stay during the week. She had tried to have him discuss it with me first, but he insisted on proceeding without prior notice. I asked why she hadn't informed me of the changes. Chelsea explained that she hadn't been told about the changes in Pierre's behavior and couldn't tell me anything about it. Chelsea explained that it was a gift and wouldn't cost us anything, but I felt that my peace of mind at home was compromised and expressed my frustration that such decisions were made without my input. Chelsea insisted that graciously accepting the gift was the right approach and encouraged me to calm down. While she prepared dinner, I left Chelsea and Pierre to their tasks and took a long, relaxing shower, hoping deep breaths would improve my mood. After a deep breath, I joined my family at the dinner table. Normally, I sat at the head of the table, but Pierre occupied that spot as our special guest. Chelsea had prepared French cuisine, escargot and bœuf bourguignon, along with fish sticks for the kids, who weren't interested in adult food. When I asked about the kids' food, I was told there were no more fish sticks, with Chelsea encouraging everyone to try something new. Ignoring the French food, I made myself 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and the kids quickly followed suit, asking for the same. I laughed, finding my inner child as I made sandwiches for the kids and more for myself. Chelsea's discomfort was obvious, but I wasn't trying to impress Pierre, and I doubted Chelsea really liked the French food she was pretending to enjoy. When the doorbell rang, Elena dropped off some papers for Pierre to sign and a manila envelope with information about our origins, which she then left in the limousine. The report revealed that our mother, known only as Pauline, had given birth to us, but her husband discovered he couldn't be our biological father. Pauline refused to name our real father, fearing her husband's retaliation, who arranged for our separate adoptions, allowing Paul only to name us. Paul Balak was born at 4:45 p.m., and Pierre was born 3 minutes later. Pierre was overcome with emotion and cried on my shoulder as evening came. Pierre apologized for the unauthorized security installation, assuring me it was excellent protection for the family and would also shield us from paparazzi. He insisted that the cost was irrelevant since family came first, and the installation would be completed the next day. I thanked him, though still upset. Chelsea left us alone, understanding the need for our conversation. Later, as I got into bed, I touched Chelsea's shoulder to discuss something important. She was upset and thought it was about intimacy, but I needed to share Rachel's concerns about Pierre. Rachel's investigation revealed Pierre's history of infidelity and his admitted attraction to married women. Despite my warnings, Chelsea dismissed my concerns, saying Pierre was a gentleman and urged me to go to sleep instead. Her dismissal left me frustrated, but I decided to let it go since Rachel hadn't mentioned any direct evidence of Pierre's misbehavior with relatives. When I got home on Tuesday night, Chelsea updated me on the day's events. Pierre had gone shopping with Chelsea and enjoyed the chance to impersonate me, being mistaken for me. He liked the anonymity, and the kids loved having two identical fathers. However, the security system was still incomplete due to a delayed part that Roland promised to deliver as soon as it arrived. Despite his disappointment, Pierre took us to the Excel Hotel for dinner, where I could enjoy something other than snails. The hotel had a dance club we hadn't visited before. Chelsea danced the first 2 dances with me, then spent the rest of the night dancing with Pierre. Elena, who had joined us, invited me to dance, but I declined and used the opportunity to chat with her. Elena, originally from Spain and now living in France, revealed that she did various jobs for Pierre, essentially working as his highly paid personal assistant 24/7. Despite her profession, she seemed content with her role and the luxury it provided. I told her I found her fascinating, which she found amusing and unusual. That night, as Chelsea and I prepared for bed, she was unusually insistent and assertive, leaving me wondering about her thoughts. The following night, Chelsea acted strangely, avoiding eye contact and being overly attentive, while Pierre seemed oddly pleased. He shared stories about his childhood, his wealth, and even suggested that we work together in television or film. He even offered to relocate my family to France, covering all expenses, though I had no intention of accepting. Later in bed, Chelsea was clearly not interested in intimacy and hinted at a surprise from Pierre that she was looking forward to. I hugged my kids as usual before going to work, finding comfort in the routine and satisfaction in my job, despite the day being normal. However, I felt apprehensive about facing the chaos at home. When I got home, I noticed a sleek blue sports car parked outside, likely a guest of Pierre's. The kids greeted me warmly, which helped keep me grounded. Inside, I was surprised to see Chelsea in an elegant black dress and Pierre in a tuxedo. Pierre had ordered a new tuxedo for me, but it didn't fit, so I wore one of my usual suits. Chelsea explained that the nanny would arrive soon and that Pierre wanted to take us out to celebrate. When I came downstairs in my suit, Pierre looked visibly frustrated about the tuxedo but reassured me it was fine. He then revealed that the sports car outside was a new French Venturi, a surprise gift from Pierre and Chelsea for me. The sports car alone seemed to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I tried to refuse, feeling it was too much, but Pierre insisted it was a token of his deep affection. He also handed me a manila envelope with mortgage papers for my house. I had only made one payment on my $950,000 mortgage, but the documents showed it had been paid in full. The magnitude of his gesture brought tears of joy to both of us, though we felt overwhelmed. I couldn't deny the happiness and gratitude I felt. Pierre suggested we not miss our dinner reservations and promised to discuss another matter over dinner. In the limousine, I admired the Venturi sports car, still amazed. I was still in awe of Pierre's generosity as Pierre, Elena, and Gerald quickly spoke in French. I remained the center of attention for the evening, feeling a mix of gratitude and guilt for my initial reluctance. During the drive, while Pierre, Elena, and Gerald chatted in French, I discreetly checked the value of the Venturi sports car on my phone. The few available in the US were priced around $425,000, making Pierre's combined gifts worth about $1,375,000. The extent of his generosity was humbling. We arrived at an exclusive restaurant, where I chose a steak dish from a menu I didn't fully understand. Pierre had ordered for Chelsea earlier and later expressed his gratitude for the hospitality we had shown him. He invited us to join him in France for a week, ideally two, to explore the country and deepen our bond. Despite his work commitments during the day, his evenings would be free for us to enjoy together. He asked me to check with my job about taking the time off. Chelsea supported the idea, noting that she had unused vacation time that would be perfect for this trip. I had 2 weeks of vacation available, but I wanted to discuss the trip with Chelsea before making a decision. She was already excited to go, and after Pierre's incredible generosity, I felt I had no choice but to accept his offer. I was also eager to get to know my brother better, as he seemed even more remarkable than I initially thought. I wanted to ensure everything was arranged in advance and felt some guilt about leaving the kids behind. Greg Dixon, managing partner at New Direction and a friend, initially approved my leave, but he had to cancel it when Carl Reed and Francine Walls both took leave under FMLA. He offered to reschedule my leave to start the following Tuesday, giving me the full 2 weeks I had planned, but insisted I work on Monday to maintain patient care. I was frustrated, especially since Chelsea and I were supposed to fly to France the next morning. I suggested that Pierre, Elena, and Gerald go ahead with the sibling plans while Chelsea and I joined them later in the week. Chelsea was disappointed by the change, as she had already packed for our trip, and suggested that she, Pierre, and Gerald go to France while I stayed behind and joined them on Tuesday. Saturday morning, I saw Chelsea, Pierre, and Gerald off at the airport. The kids were disappointed not to go to France but were reassured about a future trip. I decided to take care of the kids' needs myself until Monday morning, despite Elena's insistence on staying to help. I assumed Pierre had instructed her to stay with us. With Elena gone, I resumed my single-parent duties, with Amber stepping in to help with her siblings. Realizing I couldn't enjoy my new Venturi sports car with the kids around, I parked it in the garage and replaced it with my usual Chevy Tahoe. Then, I settled in the living room with the kids, who were engrossed in their latest favorite cartoon. I noticed some random files, including one capturing a private moment between Chelsea and me. I assured myself that such recordings could be common, and the cameras could be deactivated during certain times to prevent similar captures. It was also explained that archived files could be downloaded and saved by right-clicking on the playback screen and selecting Save. Roland finished his work, and after a handshake, left in his truck. I sat in shock, trying to process the revelation that the recording of Chelsea and Pierre in an intimate moment wasn't from our master bedroom but the guest room while I was at work. The brief clip didn't tell the whole story, so I prioritized reviewing and scanning all footage from before their trip to France. Pierre had misunderstood the security system status, thinking it wasn't functioning correctly. I realized my hard drive couldn't store all the files, so I quickly searched for any footage of Chelsea and Pierre together, noting file names, dates, and timestamps. Chelsea texted me from Paris, excited about the night lights and asking about Elena. I lied, saying I wouldn't need Elena's help until Monday and that the kids were already asleep. Chelsea, eager and distracted, didn't notice my lack of affection in my responses. I was also concerned about Pierre's possible disappointment with Elena, wondering why he would be bothered if he had sent her away. I took the kids to Costco, where I bought 2 external hard drives of 5 terabytes on sale. We wandered down the toy aisle, and I let each child pick a toy to make them happy. We stopped at McDonald's on the way home, where they played energetically in the play area and enjoyed fries and milkshakes. Back home, I spent the rest of the day scanning through logs and ordered pizza for dinner, which the kids devoured. After putting them to bed, I began downloading 26 important files onto the new drives, which filled up quickly due to their high-definition format. I finally went to bed around 2 a.m. only to be woken up at 7 a.m. by my hungry kids asking for pancakes. Despite the mess and lack of sleep, I cleaned up and answered the phone to an excited call from Chelsea in France. I handed the phone to Amber, who talked to Chelsea for a few minutes. Amber's comment that Chelsea wasn't spending the night and that Dad was taking care of us alone made me suspicious. I asked Amber to pass the phone to Naomi and Rhonda, then turned it off when they finished talking. After 15 minutes, I turned the phone back on, and it rang immediately, not Chelsea, but my sister Anita, asking about my twin brother. I broke down, suspecting Chelsea was involved with Pierre. Anita was shocked but quickly offered to help. She and Darren were taking their kids to the water park and offered to pick up mine for the day. Hesitant at first, I accepted when Anita assured me her parents would help. It was a huge relief, giving me time to review the footage and prepare for a confrontation, knowing Pierre's wealth complicated the situation. Anita and I shared a deeply emotional hug as she took my kids for the day. Without worry about others overhearing, I turned up the volume to capture every detail, focusing on understanding the nature of Chelsea's interactions with Pierre and her conversations about me. What I discovered was shocking. Chelsea, who seemed like a stable, responsible woman, was clearly thrilled by Pierre's attention, laughing at his accent, blushing at his comments, and accepting his gifts that she had hidden from me. Their actions escalated from kisses to complete intimacy, which was deeply unsettling to witness, especially with my own twin. The only noticeable difference between us was Pierre's voice. On Tuesday, they shared intense kisses but hadn't gone further when Chelsea was with me. By Wednesday, Pierre and Chelsea spent hours in the guest room. Her guilt was evident as she avoided eye contact with me and kept the kids occupied. On Thursday and Friday, while I was at work, they took their affair to our bed. It was painful to see her using the things I had taught her with him, confirming that I could never be intimate with Chelsea again. I had to proceed carefully because of Pierre's wealth. Listening to their conversation confirmed my decision. Pierre believed that money could buy anything, including me. After their intimate session on Wednesday afternoon, they discussed how to handle me. Pierre didn't want me to find out about their affair and hoped to avoid causing me emotional pain. He asked Chelsea if she could stay married to me and still be with him whenever possible. Chelsea admitted she loved him but still had feelings for me. However, she was captivated by Pierre in a way she said I would never understand. Pierre expressed guilt for taking Chelsea away from me and planned to compensate me. He intended to buy me a high-end French sports car and pay off our new house's mortgage, which Chelsea had purchased just over a month ago. He hoped these gifts would make me feel better about him, explaining the car and mortgage payoff. Despite his guilt, Pierre continued his affair with Chelsea. She might have been worth $1,375,000 to him, but to me, her betrayal made her worth nothing. A conversation captured by the doorbell camera revealed Pierre's plan to persuade Chelsea to be with him. Pierre wanted alone time with Chelsea before I joined them in France. He manipulated my work schedule to make this happen, arranging for Carl Reed and Francine Walls to take FMLA leave, forcing Greg to make me work on Monday and delay my flight until Tuesday. It seemed Pierre had his assistant, Elena Moreno, managing these arrangements. Despite Pierre's attempts to shower me with gifts, his deception and betrayal were clear. At 2:30 p.m., Elena arrived at my house dressed to impress. Instead of inviting her in, I met her on the porch. She was dressed provocatively and claimed she had something important to show me, asking to come inside. I refused, feeling uncomfortable with her outfit and the private setting. Elena insisted there was a connection between us and asked to be let in. I confronted her, telling her that Pierre's security had activated my system and likely intended for her to seduce me, based on the evidence I had. Elena was surprised that I didn't believe her and insisted she had something important to show me. She seemed taken aback but remained calm, then asked if we could go for a walk, promising no harm. I agreed, closed the front door, and we began walking. She clicked a few times on her phone and put it in her bag. A rideshare arrived, and Elena suggested we go somewhere private to talk. We went to the local mall and settled in the food court with some snacks. Elena confirmed my suspicions and revealed that Pierre had planned to seduce me to use it as leverage against me to justify his affair with Chelsea. Elena explained that Pierre believed if I was unfaithful, I would be less likely to object to Chelsea's betrayal. Despite her loyalty to Pierre, Elena admitted she disagreed with his actions, especially since my marriage and family were involved. She felt a moral obligation to be honest with me, unlike in previous cases where the husbands were less innocent. Elena mentioned that Pierre thought his gifts, the sports car and the mortgage payoff, would make me feel better. She seemed relieved to know I had the evidence needed to confront them. Elena was shocked when I revealed that I had concrete evidence of Pierre's affairs, something no one else had managed to obtain. She warned that this evidence could make me a serious threat to Pierre, who was unaware of it. Elena explained that Pierre saw his affair with Chelsea as an adventure with my wife. I told Elena that Pierre was dead to me, and I was determined to divorce Chelsea. Elena was concerned that my actions would devastate Pierre, as he had never cared about anyone but himself. She warned me that Pierre might retaliate, given his vast resources, and felt threatened. Elena expressed her own dilemma, recognizing the potential danger of Pierre's resources and possible violence but admiring my integrity and strength. I asked Elena about a conversation she and Pierre had in French on Thursday that she had been reluctant to discuss earlier. Elena was surprised to learn I had proof of Pierre's affairs, something no one else had gathered. She revealed that Pierre had bragged about his conquest of Chelsea, ignoring the impact on me. Pierre had instructed Elena to seduce me as part of his plan, even choosing her outfit for the occasion. Elena admitted that taking other men's wives was a source of power for Pierre, and she felt conflicted, realizing she had compromised her values by working for him. She was ready to leave him but needed to coordinate with me to avoid suspicion. We decided to use prepaid mobile phones for secure communication, as my home was likely being monitored. Elena suggested staging a situation where she would seduce me. I agreed to her plan and was impressed by her resourcefulness. She also offered to cover for me at work if necessary, as she had arranged for 2 therapists to be off that night. Elena spent over an hour flirting, and when she tried to kiss me, I turned my face so she kissed my cheek instead. I complimented her beauty and reaffirmed my commitment to my wife and marriage, asking her to return at 7:30 a.m. to watch the kids while I was at work. Elena replied, "Maybe next time, for the cameras," and then left. Shortly after, Amber, Naomi, and Rhonda arrived, exhausted. I thanked Anita for her help and put the kids to bed without bathing them. I spent my free time searching for new apartments, aiming to leave the home tainted by betrayal and financed by my twin brother. Greg agreed to cover for me and instructed the office secretary to take care of the kids on Monday night. The kids greeted me enthusiastically, telling me that Aunt Elena had ordered pizza and was preparing a chicken casserole. I was surprised by Elena's domestic role. When I returned from my shower, the table was set, and Elena served a large portion of the casserole on my plate, mentioning it was her mother's recipe. I complimented her cooking, saying it had changed my perception of French cuisine, and Elena thanked me. That evening, after bathing and putting the kids to bed, Elena read them a bedtime story, captivating them with her melodious voice. I watched from the doorway, impressed by this unexpected side of her. Later, we watched television together, and Elena continued to flirt with me, moving closer despite her advances. I gently declined and sent her on her way. On Tuesday morning, I pretended to leave for work and drove a short distance away. Elena then loaded the kids into Chelsea's car and met me a block away. We dropped the kids at a daycare for busy parents and went apartment hunting. Elena was surprised by my prearranged call and happy to see me. We visited 3 apartments I had shortlisted, and I asked for her advice before signing any lease. After lunch, I rented a storage unit. At 3 p.m., I received a call from Chelsea, expressing surprise. I explained that my vacation had been cancelled and that I might not be able to go to France this week. Chelsea sounded puzzled but accepted my excuse. Soon after, Elena's phone rang, and I listened quietly as she spoke quickly in French. It was Pierre, clearly upset. He had Chelsea call my boss, who had fabricated a coronavirus issue to cancel my leave. Pierre wanted Elena to improve her seduction techniques, feeling my refusal was due to her lack of effort. He expressed his frustration and his desire to bond with me as his friend and brother. Elena reassured him that she would persist through the week. Elena then deactivated the security system and confirmed that the cameras were off. We loaded both cars with my tools and equipment, then transported everything to the storage unit. Elena picked up the kids and returned before I arrived home, so they could honestly say I had gone to work as usual. The security system was restored, and Pierre wouldn't expect any footage during the downtime. That night, Elena performed a dance for me but kept her distance as I made it clear my commitment to my wife was unwavering. I dismissed her after stating aloud my dedication to my marriage, knowing it would frustrate both Chelsea and Pierre. On Wednesday and Thursday, I moved my belongings to the storage unit or the new apartment. On Friday, we moved the kids' things into the apartment, leaving some in the old house to avoid questions. Chelsea called every night, but I only let the kids talk to her, which frustrated her even more. I had disconnected the utilities and arranged a controlled burn with the fire department as a training exercise. The house was filled with gasoline, and after the final move, I set it alight. The structure collapsed quickly, with only the gas tank explosions causing any alarm, which the fire department handled expertly. I filed a permit to demolish the house and remove the debris, including proof that I had no outstanding mortgage. Explaining that I intended to rebuild a more energy-efficient home satisfied the city's climate change policies. Within 4 hours, the property value dropped from $1,375,000 to zero. By 9 p.m., the fire department confirmed there were no remaining embers, and the demolition crew promised to clear the site by Sunday night. I paid them in advance, choosing destruction over selling the property because I wanted nothing to do with the money tied to my past. The kids adapted well to the new 3-bedroom apartment, seeing it as an exciting adventure. The girls took the master bedroom, Neil took the smallest room, and I moved into a medium-sized room with some old furniture and a new bed. I informed my parents and sister about the move but kept it from Chelsea's parents for now. Elena was relieved that there were no more staged performances after the Friday move. On Friday and Saturday nights, I encouraged Elena to stay in my room, which the kids enjoyed. I kept my phone off to prevent Chelsea from discovering the move. Elena arranged a press conference in Hollywood for Sunday, using her frequent flyer miles. My parents planned to visit the new apartment on Saturday to spend time with the grandchildren. Pierre called Elena about the security system being offline. She feigned ignorance and reported her unsuccessful attempts at seduction. Pierre suggested hiring an escort, but Chelsea disagreed, thinking they needed more time. Frustrated, Pierre instructed Elena to record her next attempt if successful. Pierre changed the subject to my work schedule. Elena mentioned she was in daily contact with Greg, my boss, who anticipated that 1 or 2 of the staff out with coronavirus would return on Monday, though there were no guarantees. She promised to arrange my ticket to France as soon as I was free from work. Meanwhile, she lied to Pierre about her dislike for watching my children, showing her disinterest. Pierre confirmed that he also disliked kids and regretted not bringing me over earlier. He transferred $300 to Elena, and she shared this with me, which further deepened my trust in her. I decided to confront them through our planned press announcement rather than directly. I avoided Chelsea and turned off my phone to prevent the kids from mentioning our new place. Pierre urged Elena to get me out of work so I could travel. My parents arrived at the new apartment at 7 a.m. to care for the kids. Elena and Pierre had to leave the house by 8 a.m., and I had to head to the airport to pick them up. Elena and I flew to California, arriving 2 hours before our noon press conference in Hollywood. There were fewer reporters than at Pierre's previous event, but I was confident the story would spread. At the press conference, I introduced myself as Paul Bloch, the identical twin of Pierre Dumont, and announced my intention to divorce Chelsea due to her betrayal. I declared that I was severing all ties with Pierre. There were laughs among the reporters when one asked why Pierre, who had given me a new engagement ring, was doing this. I explained that Pierre's gifts were meant to compensate for his intrusion into my marriage but were short-lived. 2 days ago, my house and the new sports car I hadn't driven were both burned, with total loss and no insurance, as I had cancelled coverage when Pierre paid off the mortgage. The financial blow was even greater than the value of his gifts. I made it clear that I wanted nothing more from him and wished for him to stay away from me and my family. I distributed memory cards containing raw footage of Pierre and Chelsea's affair, urging the reporters to verify my claims and see images of my wife with Pierre in France. When asked about our current situation, I said we had moved to an affordable 3-bedroom apartment and were adjusting to life as a family. The group fell silent, realizing the potential truth of my claims. They could easily verify the details, and the story would likely spread, potentially damaging Pierre's reputation in France, where image is everything. I prepared for the inevitable repercussions. After the press conference, Elena and I had lunch at a restaurant. Elena shared how difficult it was for her to leave, revealing her genuine affection for the kids. I reassured her, acknowledging that her presence at the conference would make her a target. Elena revealed that she planned to stay with a university friend at the honorary French consulate in the Cayman Islands to ensure her safety. She promised we'd cross paths again once everything was resolved. I gave her my prepaid phone for security, and we shared a heartfelt goodbye before parting at the airport. I enjoyed a comforting dinner, though the weight of what was to come still loomed. I anticipated how the news would soon make waves in French social circles. Chelsea, unaware, called that evening. I decided to confront her and recorded the call for clarity. I began by telling Chelsea I knew everything about her affair with my twin brother. I explained that I had video evidence of their encounters in our home. Chelsea was shocked and apologized, claiming she never intended to fall in love with Pierre but was drawn to him as a better version of me. She mentioned Pierre's discomfort around the kids and her plan to take a break from our marriage to travel with him, promising to return later. I informed her that our house had burned down, along with Pierre's sports car, without insurance coverage for the losses. I noted her lack of concern for the children's well-being, which was disturbing. Chelsea expressed disbelief about the fire and lack of insurance, but I told her that all personal belongings were lost and that our marriage was over. Chelsea insisted that Pierre wouldn't allow me to divorce her, but I made it clear that I intended to file for abandonment and seek full custody of the kids. I ended the call, stating that neither she nor Pierre had a place in my life, and instructed her not to call back. I turned off my phone and decided to change my number. I anticipated that once the news reached France, Pierre would urgently try to contact Elena to control the damage. His inability to reach her would likely enrage him, possibly leading him to send someone else or even return himself to handle the situation. I changed my phone number early Monday morning, making myself unreachable to Pierre. However, he still managed to call me at work, prompting an urgent call to my desk. Pierre pleaded with me to retract my statements, accusing me of destroying his reputation and destabilizing my family over something trivial. I responded that Elena had done everything for me and that I was simply returning the favor for his betrayal. Pierre insulted me, calling me a loser, before ending the call. I requested that my company block his calls. In my free moments, I checked online for updates on the aftermath of my press conference. Blurry video clips circulated on social media, with Pierre's initial denials quickly contradicted by his recognizable voice and accent. Paparazzi photos of Pierre and Chelsea were republished as confirmation of my story. Pierre was informed he would be replaced due to the controversy, and as they tried to travel, the press hounded them relentlessly, turning Pierre from a celebrated star into a notorious predator within just 2 weeks. Pierre faced an onslaught of similar allegations from other victims, leading to his suspension from all talent contracts and public disdain. His career was in ruins, and Chelsea bore harsh treatment from him, likely due to his anger over my revelations. Unable to restore his image, Pierre replaced Elena, who had vanished, and sought revenge against me by secretly purchasing New Directions Incorporated for $20 million through a shell company. This resulted in my dismissal and the installation of Brad Preston as CEO. Preston, acting under Pierre's orders, falsified my personnel file with fabricated accusations of inappropriate behavior to tarnish my reputation. He also arranged for all calls regarding me to be redirected to his office. Preston was tasked with locating Elena and monitoring for any leads, while Pierre hired a hacker to track and transfer all my financial assets abroad. My bank accounts, 401k, and investments were drained, leaving me without income and struggling to cover my monthly expenses. Pierre had grown tired of Chelsea and was disappointed that he couldn't humiliate me as he'd hoped. She had become a burden to his public life, and any sightings of them together attracted negative attention. Chelsea immediately sought me out using the new address Pierre had given her, requesting to see our children and hoping for reconciliation. I told her it was too late, as I had already filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment. Despite her claims of realizing the value of our relationship, I made it clear that her actions had ended our marriage and that I would only meet her if ordered by the court. She asked if she could stay, offering to cook and provide support, but I told her she was no longer relevant to me or the children. Then she revealed she was pregnant and claimed I was the father, showing me DNA results. However, I knew this was impossible, as we hadn't been intimate since before she left the country. I refused responsibility for the child and told her she couldn't stay, suggesting she contact her parents for assistance. I made it clear that anything she left behind would be discarded. She left in tears, and her parents arrived to take her away. I didn't mention my unemployment. My friends and family were stunned by my desperate situation. I had lost my home, car, job, and discovered that all my financial accounts had been drained, leaving me bankrupt. The next day, I received a notice of an investigation for alleged inappropriate behavior at my previous job, which could cost me my professional license. I suspected Pierre was behind it but lacked proof, which worsened my situation. I regretted not securing my finances better as I faced mounting bills and learned my bank wouldn't replace the stolen funds until proven otherwise. My parents couldn't support us, and I hesitated to burden my sister. Despite promises, I was rejected from every job interview. Chelsea, who had pawned Pierre's jewelry, hired a lawyer for her divorce and visitation rights and issued me a summons for an arbitration meeting. The meeting was unproductive, we disagreed on everything, and a follow-up meeting was scheduled 2 weeks later. A week later, Chelsea called me from jail, asking for help. She had no one else and begged me to come to the station. I agreed, arranged for someone to watch the kids, and went to see what I could do. When I arrived at the station for a face-to-face meeting, Chelsea looked devastated. We spoke through a glass partition. "Why are you here, Chelsea?" I asked, concerned. "Thank you for coming, Paul. I never wanted you to find out," she said, visibly shaking. Pierre was a jerk, and I was blinded by his charm. He gave me Xanax and then oxycodone, and I became obsessed, needing more to function. I pawned the jewelry he gave me to pay my lawyer, and when I ran out of pills, I had to exchange favors for more. I was arrested for this and am now stuck here with a bail of $250 that I can't afford. My parents will kick me out if I ask for help. Please, don't let that happen. Despite my anger over her recent actions, I felt compassion, but I had no money myself. I couldn't even support my children. Helping her seemed impossible. Chelsea and I were both bankrupt. Not only had Pierre gotten me fired, but he'd also hired a hacker to steal all my financial assets. The only way to raise Chelsea's $250 bail was to take a loan against my car, but I needed her agreement on primary custody of the children, with visitation rights for her on alternate weekends. After some negotiation, Chelsea agreed to the terms. I arranged for my parents to take the kids on a camping trip over the weekend to give me time to handle everything. I decided not to inform them yet about Chelsea's situation. That night, during a 4th of July celebration, two well-dressed men took the stage, one carrying a gun and the other a revolver. They announced they were looking for me to teach me a lesson for supposed misbehavior. As they scanned the crowd and approached me, a sense of fear washed over me. Just before they reached me, an 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair positioned herself between us, and the crowd of 2,000 fell silent. Her mother stepped in, warning the men that any harm to her daughter would not be tolerated. Her father also intervened, warning the attackers to back off. As the situation escalated, 5 muscular men and their wives stepped forward to show their support. Finally, the entire town came to my defense, inspired by the little girl's courage. Greg Dixon stood beside the mayor and vouched for my character, explaining my good reputation in unjust firing. The mayor then addressed the crowd, asking if anyone had been mistreated by me or could offer me a job. Many hands were raised. The mayor also ordered the police to arrest the attackers and increase patrols near my home, ensuring I had community support. Moved by the overwhelming kindness, I thanked everyone as the crowd reluctantly dispersed. Returning to my empty apartment, I drove to the lake to watch the fireworks. While sitting on the shore, I found what appeared to be a valuable diamond ring. I took it to the largest jewelry store in town, where the manager quickly recognized it and verified its worth. The jeweler confirmed that the diamond ring was valued at $200,000, but I accepted an offer to sell it for $158,800, receiving $10,000 in cash and a check for $148,800. After finalizing the transaction, I used the money to bail Chelsea out of jail and arranged a taxi to take her to her parents' house. I then went shopping to replenish my empty pantry. As I carried the groceries into my apartment, everything suddenly went black. Slowly regaining consciousness in a hospital room, I was greeted by a smiling Elena. Disoriented, I wondered if I had died. Elena called for the doctor, who quickly examined me. She explained that she had identified herself as my wife to ensure she could stay by my side and that I was covered under her company's health insurance, which she had inadvertently signed me up for. Deeply grateful, I wished I had met her sooner. Elena reassured me that my children were safe with my family, who had been taking care of them. She then offered to show me a video of the night I was attacked. The video revealed how I was walking home with my groceries when a thug hit me from behind with a baseball bat, knocking me unconscious just minutes after a call from Gerald. Elena explained that Gerald had left Pierre's employment after learning of the plot against me and had come to protect us both. He stood guard outside my hospital room while Elena visited me. The video's audio had been muted to protect Gerald's identity and to show that he was acting in self-defense. Gerald had threatened the surviving attacker to confess and testify against Pierre and had performed a life-saving tracheotomy on the injured man. I was stunned as Elena shared this with me. She explained that her presence here wasn't by chance. Henry, a close university friend now in Georgetown, had offered her security against Pierre. Despite her initial fascination and affection for Pierre, Henry's influence had shown her what true love was. Henry, who was gay, shared a purely platonic bond with Elena, and during her stay with Henry and his husband, Franco, she learned about genuine love, something she had struggled to understand due to a painful childhood and her parents' bitter divorce. Manipulation had left her wary of love and marriage, but Henry and Franco's relationship showed her a love she had never experienced before. Elena admitted that in the past, she had used men superficially, but Henry's guidance helped her realize that love is a gift, not an obligation. Franco's advice made this concept clear to her. Elena continued, explaining that Franco and Henry had rented the movie Moulin Rouge for her. Although she knew the story, she had never seen the movie. While watching it together, Franco told her that if she didn't understand love after seeing it, there was little hope for her. The movie was transformative for Elena. Its portrayal of love, especially the song, Come What May, made the concept tangible to her. Henry's profound statement, "You'll never know love unless you surrender to it," resonated deeply. With tears streaming down her face, Elena confessed that she had been searching for someone genuine, and she now saw a love in me that she had never recognized before. As she cried into my chest, I felt a warmth and affection I hadn't experienced in a long time. I took her hand and asked if she would marry me once my divorce from Chelsea was finalized. She hugged me tightly, joyfully agreeing. I reminded her that exclusivity was essential to me, and she assured me that she was fully committed. Elena stayed with me, sleeping on the sofa while I rested in the bed. After receiving my thanks and an offer of payment, which he declined with a smile, Gerald left. At the arbitration meeting, Chelsea and I finalized our custody agreement, and her lawyer promised to get it approved quickly by a judge. We scheduled another meeting to discuss the divorce. I asked Chelsea how she was coping since her time in jail. She admitted to struggling with cravings and occasionally visiting her supplier. I offered her a place in a drug rehabilitation program costing $20,000, which I would sponsor if she agreed to sign the uncontested divorce papers. I also promised an additional $10,000 if she completed the program and obtained a health certificate. I explained that I intended to marry Elena if she would have me. Chelsea considered my offer and then made one final request, a passionate kiss to bring closure to our relationship. I saw a longing in Chelsea's eyes that had been absent for years. Given our current situation, I knew I couldn't marry Elena until the divorce was final, and fulfilling Chelsea's request could help expedite the process. Despite my discomfort with her recent actions and the possible health risks, I proposed a compromise. I would give her a kiss once Elena and I picked her up from rehab, marking a meaningful moment for both of us. Chelsea accepted, and we sealed the agreement with a handshake. I knew the rehab program included health screenings, so Chelsea would be clear by the time she completed it. I planned to inform Elena about this promise and my reasoning to avoid misunderstandings. Chelsea signed the divorce papers, which would finalize our divorce in approximately 8 months. To celebrate the signing, Elena and I took the kids out for dinner, though we kept the true reason from them. The next day, we began house hunting for a 4-bedroom rental to make room for Elena's 4-year-old son. We moved within a week, and Chelsea arranged her admission to rehab that same week. I drove her to the center and paid the fee in cash. On the way back, I called Chelsea's parents to let them know she was settled in and asked if they could take the kids for the weekend. They were happy to help. When the house was empty and the divorce papers were signed, I considered Chelsea and me effectively divorced. The final paperwork was just a formality. Elena was thrilled, jumping into my arms as we celebrated. We spent the entire weekend together, only dressing when we had to pick up the kids. We maintained separate sleeping arrangements for the children's sake but enjoyed our time together whenever they were away. 4 months later, Elena and I arrived at the rehab center. Elena held a large envelope of cash, and I greeted Chelsea, now visibly 7 months pregnant, with a sincere kiss. Chelsea thanked me, apologized, and praised me, advising Elena to cherish me. Elena expressed her gratitude to Chelsea, and we took her to her parents' home. Chelsea had decided to place her baby for adoption as soon as the divorce decree arrived. Elena eagerly began planning our wedding in France. We had a grand celebration in a cathedral complete with a pipe organ. Elena's mother, who had invited many important guests, was moved by her daughter's commitment to me. Despite her initial shock, they shared an emotional moment of reconciliation. A class action lawsuit was filed in France against Pierre Dumont, with me as one of the 20 plaintiffs, alongside criminal charges of assault and attempted murder. Elena's trusted lawyer in Paris handled the criminal charges separately, allowing us to avoid the hearings or trial and stay out of the spotlight. It took over a year, but Pierre was found guilty of destroying 20 marriages and was ordered to pay a total of €40 million, with €2 million awarded to each plaintiff. Pierre was also convicted on conspiracy charges for assault and attempted murder. Elena's lawyer proved highly effective, and we were very satisfied with the outcome. A medical review board cleared me of any misconduct, allowing me to continue my work as CEO of New Directions, helping people as I had always intended. Elena and I built our dream home and a second one nearby for my parents, giving them a mortgage-free place to live. We also funded the kids' university education. Elena remained loyal and reliable. In the 5 years following rehab, Chelsea married a colleague and maintained regular visits with the children. We kept a cordial relationship, and Chelsea never spoke poorly of me. Proudly, I walked Amber and Rhonda down the aisle at their weddings. As I grew older, I stayed close to the brave 8-year-old girl who selflessly changed my life by stepping in. Her courage left a profound impact on my life.